Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So it's now getting close to that time, Sunday night, when we do an episode of Commonalities Compared, which is what we're doing today, or tonight, I guess. So in Commonalities Compared, this is the show that Ben, a subscriber, and me put together. So he gives me the suggested commonalities and I compare them. Basically, that's what it is. So the two he's given me tonight, I think, have a fair bit in common, and most people will think that way as well, I think. We have Montrose' debut album and Van Halen's debut album. Both these albums came out different years, obviously. This one from 73. I believe this one was 77. So let me get my glasses so I can make sure. But I'm pretty sure that's the case. It might have been a little bit later than that. As usual, we never get really what you want. Oh, yeah. No, actually, I was wrong. 78. So 78 and 73. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities between these bands. First of all, they're both hard rock bands that are guitar driven, kind of, I would say, common themes, love themes, drug themes, sex themes, a little bit of that going on for both. You've got some fantastic guitar, both riffing and solos from both of the musicians on these albums. You've got some very powerful lead vocals, although I do tend to think that Sammy Hagar, who was the vocalist on this album, for me, tends to sound a little bit more like the Coverdale Page sound that he does at the David Lee Roth sound. I never really understood why Van Halen chose him. Eventually, Van Halen did choose the vocalist off here to be on this album, replacing David Lee Roth. I don't think there's a lot of sound similarity between the two. Maybe the style is there. Both good-looking blonde guys doing being frontmen. Yeah, there's that commonality, obviously, but vocally, I think Sammy Hagar probably has a smoother sounding rocky type voice. David Lee Roth, more scratchy, more kind of bluesy type voice. Not really the same. Many people have cited Sammy Hagar as being a much better vocalist, and I'm not going to argue with that. I prefer David Lee Roth. I think his voice is perfect for Van Halen and was there for those first 6 albums, which I think are all great albums. There's a little bit more, how do you say, a little bit more flash, I guess might be the word to describe it, on the Van Halen album than there is on the Montrose. This to me is a straight up hard rockin', typical hard rock band of the 1970s. Fantastic guitar, heavy rhythm section, strong front lead vocals. Lots of bands had that. You know, there's got that sex and drugs and rock and roll theme. Now this a little bit more, a little bit different, heavier maybe. You know, some people might even call this a metal album. I wouldn't, but I know other people would. There's kind of a bluesy kind of element going on here, which is pretty strong. And there's some absolutely killer guitar stuff on this album. Yeah, got a bit of more of a modern flair to it as far as the time period goes. Yeah, this band is flashy. I don't think Montrose is as flashy a band. So that to me is the difference between the two. Obviously, I prefer Van Halen. I like all 6 of their first albums, some of them more than others, but I still like them all. This one does have some cover stuff on it, like You Really Got Me is on here. I don't believe there's any covers of anything on this album, but I'm not as familiar with this album. This one's still relatively new to me. I've listened to it a few times. I've had it for a couple of years now. It hasn't been put in my playlist. I'm not sure it. Maybe back in the 70s and 80s, I would have put this in my playlist for sure, but my taste in music has changed a bit. So I do like listening to it once in a while if I'm doing something like I am now, but generally speaking, I don't really follow it too much. I'm not a huge Sammy Hagar fan. I appreciate his abilities and his vocal abilities, but he's not a guy I've ever really followed, and I actually prefer David Lee Roth quite a bit more, at least with Van Halen. Not so much by himself, but with Van Halen, I do like him. He has the ability to give us that kind of raspy voice that I really enjoy. So, anyways, that's my take on the two bands. Van Halen, debut album, 1978. Montrose, debut album, 1973. It's a lot of similarities. And of course, they both have the same producer here. You've got Ted Templeton and on both albums. So that I think probably he liked that style of band and wanted to continue to do it. And he did well with both bands, I think. Maybe Van Halen had more of a commercial success going forward than Montrose did, but still not too totally dissimilar in sounds. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Commonalities Compared, featuring Montrose's debut and Van Halen's debut. And please hit the like and subscribe. And if you want to make any comments about either band, what you liked or didn't like about either band, are they really all that similar, or do you find them totally dissimilar? Do you consider them metal? Do you consider them hard rock? Any questions you want to pose in the comment section, I'll be trying to answer as best I can, or at least give you my opinion. And we will see you next week for another episode of Commonalities Compared. So have yourself a good night and take care and goodbye.